Hello, welcome to See the Market Clearly. Overcome cognitive bias for better trading decisions. Think about this. How can you tell if you have a subconscious bias? You can't. Asking yourself, am I biased? Is like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror. Biases operate beneath the surface, beyond your conscious awareness. But just because you can't see them doesn't mean they're not there. That's what we all do, though. We all automatically, without realizing it, just write off whatever doesn't make sense. But discounting your bias simply because you can't detect it is like saying gravity doesn't exist because you can't see it pulling you down, and you do need to account for gravity. Bias isn't just a subtle influence, it's a full on hijacking of how you process information. For example, the self confirming bias is one of the most powerful. Your brain automatically rejects information that doesn't fit with your existing beliefs, and you don't even realize that it's happening. Like when I was younger, I used to think that I was so smart, and my memory was awesome. So every time I remembered something or could do like trivia or whatever, I would tell myself, yeah, I'm smart, I'm sharp. And then, of course, I got older, and your intelligence and your memory goes steadily downhill after your early 20s. So over time, I started to realize that I wasn't remembering things, and I'd be like, man, I'm stupid. It must be all that weed. And so it really kind of switched is what I'm saying is like, man, my memory's terrible. Every single time it came time to remember something, and that would feel bad. But then I realized that that's actually what's happening. It's the self-confirming bias. It's not either or. It's just like a gradual change. And there's still a lot of stuff that I remember. I don't know if I should tell this story, but I went to Costa Rica with my family, and I stopped smoking medical marijuana for a month. And then on our last day in this house that we were living in, I said, "Oh my gosh, that clock on the wall is 20 minutes fast." And then my wife said, "Yeah, that's the fourth time that you've noticed that. And I guess you forgot all the other times that you noticed that. And this is the last day that we're here." And so you would think that I would be a little disappointed because I was so not in tune with my awareness and not sharp. But instead, I was like, oh, well, it's not the weed that's making me stupid. And I was kind of happy about that. Uh, I don't know if I should have told that. But I use medical marijuana. It helps me to be a better person. All right. And I'm still brilliant, I think, or that's what I notice. So let's say that you're convinced a certain stock is a good buy. You'll subconsciously focus on the news articles that support that idea while dismissing the ones that warn you of trouble ahead. And this is not you being stubborn, it's your brain trying to protect from the discomfort of uncertainty. And I mean, this happens in politics all the time. People want affirmation and not information. And so, like anything that happens, you're going to get the news that you're used to getting, and it's going to frame it in the way that you are used to it seeing it. You know how they say that love is blind? Every time I was in a crazy relationship, which did happen uh, until I met my wife, I could always look back and see that the signs were there. And I mean, I was a psychologist. That's kind of scary. And you should be afraid to some degree every time a particularly sexy trade comes along your way. Your brain takes in tons of information all the time, but your attention is defined as what you become consciously aware of. And that's a very small fraction of all the input that's coming into your sensory system. And there is, however, a system that is designed to filter reality. It's called the reticular activating system. So, like, imagine you're at a party with 100 people and they're all talking and it's chaotic. And then out of all that noise, you hear your kid calling for you or crying, and you immediately zone in to that one specific sound. Or maybe you're thinking about buying a specific car and you've been researching it lately. And then all of a sudden you see it everywhere you go. Your attention isn't neutral, it's directed by what's already on your mind. Here's a wild fact: research shows that happy people are less accurate about life than depressed people. because the brain sacrifices accuracy for certainty every time. That's why we cling to patterns and narratives, even if they're not true. It's because they make us feel secure and we automatically go to what feels better. So, how do we deal with this? Well, my therapy is like a lens cleaner for your mind. It doesn't argue with your conscious thoughts. It goes deeper, bypassing all those surface level noises to address the biases at their root. If you participate in this session and others, we will uncover those hidden filters, dissolve emotional attachments, and recalibrate how you see the market. All right, so let's do the warm up. Please situate yourself in front of the screen so that your eyes move pretty much all the way back and forth as you watch the ball. All right, take a deep breath, please. And now I'd like for you to consider how it feels to realize that as a trader, the best you can ever do is to make an educated guess about something. And what it's like to understand that everyone's perception, not just yours, is always clouded by a certain amount of bias. So go ahead and consider that as you watch the ball. All right. So now think back to a time when you were convinced that you saw the market clearly, but later realized you were not quite right. Maybe it was a trade you were certain you'd win, but you ignored warning signs. Feel that moment fully, the confidence, the outcome, and the hindsight. All right, deep breath. Now I'd like for you to please recall and focus on how your emotions have clouded your judgment in the past. Maybe it was regret over a loss or the fear of missing out, or maybe even the thrill of a big win, because all these emotions create bias. So feel what that distortion feels like in your body. All right, good. So now, after having you feel unsettled, I'd like for you to shift gears and now just focus on feeling good. Even the best traders in the world have bias and can only make educated guesses because you never really know what the market is going to do. So, only a few of these people are tackling these problems head on like you are right now. So, you can feel good about that. All right, take a deep breath. And now, picture a lens being cleaned, wiping away the smudges of fear and regret and overconfidence. Each swipe of the ball makes your view clearer. Okay, let's take this next set to explore one of the biggest biases out there, which is the self confirming bias. Imagine you're researching a trade. What's the first thing your brain does? It looks for proof that your idea is right. So now imagine catching yourself in that moment. See yourself stepping back and consciously considering the opposite perspective as well. All right. So, the reticular activating system also shapes what you see. Think about something you've been hyper focused on lately, like a particular stock or a pattern, or even a narrative about yourself as a trader or as a person. Imagine expanding your focus, zooming out so that you can see the bigger picture, see it and feel it. All right, take another deep breath and let's dissolve emotional attachments. Of course, there are other sessions that I've designed specifically for that. But for now, please think about a loss that you've taken personally, like maybe it was some kind of a failure. Feel that regret fully and then let it just drain out of your body like water flowing away. All right, good job. And if you ever need to repeat anything, any step along the way, just go back and feel free to do that. So for now, I'd like for you to think about a future trade. Picture yourself approaching it with zero emotional baggage, no fear, no hope, just clarity. What does that feel like? All right, you're doing great. And now let's recalibrate your perception. So think of a narrative you've told yourself about trading. Maybe something like, I always mess up under pressure. Something. Let's see what comes up for you. Okay, and now I'd like for you to rewrite that narrative. So replace it with something empowering like, I can make calm and calculated decisions. You could think of evidence of your doing that, whether as a trader or in your real life. And of course, you can always have somebody with you, like a coach or a mentor or somebody who's pulling for you. Okay, so imagine that your subconscious mind is a lens and it's just been cleaned. The smudges of bias and emotion are gone. How does that help you to see? How does it help you to perceive things? This is pretty abstract, so we're not asking you to be very literal about it, but what does it feel like to kind of not have to be subject to emotional noise? All right, good job. Take a deep breath. And now picture your intuition as a muscle. Each time you use it without interference from bias, it gets stronger. So imagine flexing that mental muscle as you scan the market, spotting patterns and opportunities with clarity. All right. And now I'd like for you to feel the freedom of not overanalyzing. Imagine making a decision quickly and confidently, not because it's reckless, but because you trust yourself on that gut level. All right. I love this one. Imagine yourself in a magic potion store. Pick out a bottle labeled clarity or confidence or anything else that it is you need, or buy both of them or all of them. So go ahead and drink it though, and feel it spreading throughout your body, sharpening your perception. All right. Now picture a bridge to your future as a trader. Cross it with this new, clear perspective. Feel the strength and confidence of someone who sees the market for what it truly is, an arena of possibilities and opportunities, not of personal validation or failure. All right, deep breath. You can do this session as many times as you like, and you have just cleaned your mental lens and tuned your perception. The market is clearer, your biases are quieter, and you're ready to trade with confidence. All right, take care.